me, the older I get, the worse I think I am. I mean, I know, I just think there's much more to learn, and can do so much better. I mean, that was startling for me because, having been at school and totally rock and pop obsessed, but classical music was presented badly to us, both in the sort of imposition and also the sort of manner of it as well. It was too formal, and there was a patronising attitude to what we were doing as well. So if you're trying to encourage somebody in, don't alienate them. That's absolutely useless. So I was hearing that classical period, which is quite formal to me, and suddenly when I heard Sibelius and some of these other composers, hugely wonderful florid melodies and excitement and colour, and I thought, hang on, this is classical music. Like with the first time I heard Clair de Lune by Debussy, I thought, sounds like the Beatles, and I thought, that's the wrong way round actually. And so either my ears were closed to. So I think that voyage of discovery started then, and it kind of, it's like a treasure chest really, the world of, I hate the term classical music because it's sort of, it's associated with the formality, and it puts so many people off, and it's a collective term for really the best music that survived over the last 1,000 years, or the last particularly 300, 400, 500 years. And within that, it's unlikely you're going to like all of it, and you might only like small parts of it. But a lot of people get put off any of it, and they don't realise. I say to my nephews and nieces and others sometimes that actually you'll go to a film and say you really like that music, and that is effectively classical music, but actually you just didn't realise that. Then you'll say, well, I hate classical music. So there's an awful lot of barriers still, which I think is such a shame, really. Yes, the Coelia Suite in Sibelius was a wonderful moment. It was like one of those, it really was the road to Damascus. I just thought, wow, God. Well, I think the other key thing was that having had a not great experience with the arranger on Genesis to Revelation, where we didn't have any control, I remember thinking I would like to be able to do that, even if I don't always actually be the person that orchestrates. I want to understand it so I can talk the language. I mean, now I've done a lot of orchestration, but when I'm working now I use Andrew Skeet because he's just much more versatile than I am. But I mean, I've often come up with initial ideas and suggestions, and then if things are not right, I can talk the language. It's not just some bloke saying, well, here, mate, I don't like the sound of it. The world of orchestral music and the thing about orchestration is also fascinating as well. The infinite combinations, and I mean that's the thing about the first album. It was that's the disappointment to me looking back at it. In a parallel world, I'd love to have seen what I would have done after The Geese and the Ghost had that style been allowed to develop. I was pulled straight into if you want to record, you've got to do songs, because without wishing to sound too, pretentious or whatever, I mean, the thing that I loved was the combination of a lot of what you would call rock instruments with classical instruments, but done not with rock band over there, orchestra over there, homogeneous, combining them, timbre. I remember a stupid thing on The Geese that goes to somewhere where there's a cor anglais doubling a fuzz guitar, and it's a combination that works. And in the orchestra, you've got all these incredible combinations of instruments, doublings at the octave and all the rest of it. And suddenly here was the chance to try all that, which I wasn't very good at, but I'd learned orchestration, but throwing guitars into the mix as well, different types of guitar, classical, 12-string, and some of the smaller instruments, the bazookas and things. And I felt that on The Geese and the Ghost, although we got a lot wrong, there was some things that were nice and did work there like that. It would have been great to have had a chance to develop that, but that's gone on, but in a different lifetime, which we can't clue into yet. But it's funny, isn't it? Really, that looking back at it, the magical combination of instruments. I think orchestration is a ceaseless wonder to me, actually. And there are some composers like Stravinsky, even if you don't like all the music at times, which some of it I love, some I find too tricky. But you think, how is he doing that? What combination is producing that? There's a magical quality to and that's the thing that I suppose I became so excited about, just breaking outside the guitar, bass, drums into that world where you could be much more descriptive. I think there's different periods of Genesis that people like as well. I mean, the Phil's era is got the biggest amount of fans, but there are obviously those that don't like that era so much and do like the early period. And I used to be sort of apologetic later on about having been, because people, the overall press angle was down on Genesis. But some people would say, no, I love the early era. I mean, I think there's a lot of bias, isn't there, without, it's name tags. People actually haven't heard all the music. They just make their minds up over an image or a few tracks. And dangerous. I've done the same thing. You sort of prejudge or you narrowly judge. Yeah. Quite a good test that is, play people tracks and don't tell them which artist it is. I talk about this ceaselessly actually when people are bemoaning the current age. I mean, I'm a curmudgeon about aspects of the modern age and the depersonalisation of things as others, but the democratic approach to music now is so much better, both in terms of producing music and also the cost of the equipment. I mean, something that people also don't talk about is that there was a kind of oligarchy or plutocracy, or either few or rich, of people that could afford this fantastic equipment. You had the Fairlight, the Synclavier, all these things. I mean, they cost more than I was making in a year. And so in the late 70s and 80s, not only did you have record companies telling you what to do, you could not record if you didn't kowtow because the equipment was too expensive. Studio recorders, there were no computers, and also you couldn't buy the new flashy kit. Now, if you've got no talent, it's not going to help you anyway. But if you've got as much talent as the next guy, but he's got that and you haven't, he's going to sound better than you. So there was all that. So I think, and the lowering of price of the gear, as well as the accessibility to it, and accessibility to releasing your stuff out there, without having to kowtow, having your music fashion, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's wonderful. The flip side is going to be that everyone's doing it, which means that there's so much music out there that you then, how do you get yours to the top of the pile? But you can't have everything. It's much better to have that freedom. And you could argue, hopefully, in a way, maybe that the really good stuff will always come to the top. I'm not sure it's true, but I like to think that's the case. So yes, I agree with you 100% about that.